Well, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the latest in our series of live HOP webinars brought to you by the HOP platform. Today we are going to focus on careers in environmental sustainability within construction. So there's quite a few words there to try and get our heads around. So I'm going to introduce our panelists straight away, then I'll come back and give you a little bit of housekeeping. So firstly, a very good afternoon to Pauline Treator. So would you like to introduce yourself to us, please?
Thanks, Gareth. Hi, everyone. My name's Pauline Treator. I've been working in the construction industry for some 26 years in various roles, and I am delighted to tell you about some of those roles and the opportunities that are growing in sustainable construction.
Thank you very much, Pauline, and a very good afternoon to Annalie.
Hi, I'm Annalie. I work for CITB. If you don't know what CITB is, it's the Industry Construction Training Board. I've been in education for the last 16+ years, and I'm really here to just talk a little bit about apprenticeship with you.
For sure, thank you very much to Pauline and Annalie. A little bit of housekeeping before we go in today. So housekeeping, firstly, well done for those of you that have come home from school. It's Thursday afternoon, you've registered for this webinar and you come in and you joined it as well. So by joining this webinar live, the advantage you guys have is that you can interact with us. So any questions that you've got as we're going through, if you don't think we cover it or you want to know a little bit more or you want a bit of guidance, you can submit your questions. So on your dashboards, on your screens, there's one that says questions on there. If you click the button on that one, it'll open out a text box. Then you can type your question in there. It'll only be visible to me, and then I can direct that question through to our panelists for you. This is being recorded, so if you can't stay through until the end of it, or if you can stay to the end of it, but you think, do you know what, I've got a friend who should really watch this, or my teacher should really watch this, then you will be able to direct them to it. So the place to direct people to is our HOP website, first of all, so hop into, so you can see the details on your screen there, and you'll also see details of some of our social media channels as well. So do familiarize yourself with those if you are not already aware of HOP and their social media platform. So again, thank you for joining us, and do make sure you take the opportunity to interact with us. Well, look, first of all, Pauline, I'm going to ask you to answer this one. We're going to be talking about construction today, but specifically we're going to be talking about sustainable construction. So can you just tell us, is this the same thing or what's the difference?
So it's the same thing, but it has a little environmental analysis going all around it. So construction, we're all affected by construction. We all live in a house. Well, most of us do. We go to school, in a building, you know, we get injured, we go to a doctor's or hospital. Every single one of us has, you know, a contact with a building. And so being involved in the construction industry, whether you're on a construction site or you're on the boardroom, you know, you are making a huge impact to everyone's lives. And sustainable construction has come in over the past 20 years, and even so more in the last 5 years with what's happening in the climate. But fundamentally, sustainable construction, it's about putting together structures and using processes in an environmentally friendly way. So Gareth, before I actually talk about that slide, could you go to the next one, if that's okay, please? Because absolutely, the whole life cycle of construction, as I said, from the construction site to the drawings, the designs, understanding it, sustainability is right through every part of the building process. So if you're building a new house, a new community centre, for example, sustainability is threaded you through in terms of looking at the land, looking at biodiversity, you know, what impact the having the building built will have on the animals around there, what carbon emissions will escape from the activity going on that construction site, right through to the cost of that, using systems, having processes in place, through to the client you're building the development for, they may, and ever so more nowadays, have these sustainability objectives. Got to have bicycle stands, people have got to be able to walk around the complex. It's got to have a school to ensure, you know, well-being of the community is considered in a community centre. And then you've got, you know, about the actual building itself. So many of you will maybe have seen buildings with trees growing out of them and, you know, bushes growing out of them. It's about producing the right levels of carbon to oxygen. And so sustainable construction is really at every part of that construction process. And with government having set a net zero carbon target by 2050, the construction industry is absolutely impacted from cradle to grave because it is one of the biggest emitters of carbon emissions. And the construction industry is a huge contributing to the economy as well. So we are a significant industry that has substantial impact on society. And so net zero and thinking about energy efficiency, you will hear maybe the term about retrofit, energy efficiency in your home. Your parents might have thought about it, for example. It could be LED lighting. You know, when you leave a room, switch the lights off, or having loft insulation. And you'll have seen some solar panels on homes now. And people are implementing heat pumps. That's all what's happening in our homes at the moment as we drive towards trying to achieve net zero carbon targets. And, you know, that is for, you know, our existing buildings. Sustainable construction isn't just about existing and new buildings. It's about, you know, the whole exercise of that building lifestyle, how it's used, how it works, and, you know, looking at, you know, what emissions a building is emitting to, you know, help the environment. So in construction, there is a number of roles. In sustainable construction, there's a vast amount of new roles coming to the forefront now. In the last couple of years, there's been 180 new jobs, new job titles created in the industry that never existed before. So there's such a thirst and an energy to drive environmental and lessen that environmental impact into the construction industry. And, you know, that is a huge opportunity for you. You might have heard some job titles such as sustainability consultant, sustainability director, sustainability site manager, for example. These are all roles that have an important role in ensuring that the materials being used on site are responsibly sourced, that the individuals you know, that are involved in the project are following due processes, all to achieve the lesser impact to the environment. So the reason I'm showing you that slide, whether you think, you know, I want to go into roofing, I want to go into electrical, I want to go into design, any role in construction, you'll be meeting customers, you'll be meeting stakeholders. So, you know, ensuring you can engage and understand sustainability issues is important, whatever role you decide in the construction industry. And the construction industry is changing. Gareth, if you could just flick to that first slide that I had, that had some images on there with COVID. Construction industry is one of the only industries that has continued to grow. We've got some real new challenges with big data coming in. People are going on site, they're logging waste, you know, on construction sites. How is it being managed? Companies have got targets now where they're reducing waste to landfill by 20%, next year by 30%. And so, you know, these are all being pushed through with government legislation and regulation, and the construction industry, and even so for being in a sustainable fashion, the legislation regulation is really driving this. So it's not just about making sure you've recycled your paper and your coffee cup. It goes so deep into the fabric of the building and the environment outside of that. We've got a huge skill shortage in the construction industry because perceptions really, it's horrible, it's cold, it's outside. A lot of jobs in construction, you might go on site once a week, once a month, back to your desk, looking at the processes, measuring how sustainable the life cycle of the building is looking. And, you know, creating lots of opportunity for each and every one of us. If you could just go forward. So a day in the life, you know, whether you want to work on a site, you want to draw plans and design. I met a gentleman who just graduated from university as a designer architect, and he's really hungry to get involved in community buildings, a building that will have an impact and help a county such as Hertfordshire. To be part of something like that, you know, it gives one a lot of satisfaction. In terms of existing buildings right now in Hertfordshire, we're looking at retrofitting the dwellings right across our county. Just to give you an idea, we've got 500,000 homes in Hertfordshire that have to have retrofit energy efficiency measures installed by 2050. Currently, we have 137 qualified individuals who can do that work. We need to find an army of people to help us install solar panels, heat pumps, insulation, to design homes for the future that will be sustainable. There's lots of roles. The building regulations for homes, hospitals, schools are changing to have high deliverables on environmental matters. But here in our county alone, we've got 500,000 homes that need energy efficiency because we're emitting something in the region of 60% carbon emissions just from our home. And if we can address our dwellings' environmental impact, then achieving net zero will be quite achievable. So lots of opportunity, whether you're a practical person or more desk-based, there's a role for you. And to make an impact on the future and how we're living is here and now. And as I say, there's new roles being created all the time. So keep an eye out for those and see what really excites you. What are you interested in? Whether that's getting up in the morning, going on a site, whether that's going into an office and seeing actually how can we improve these buildings, make them better, you know, and it from sustainability point of view, it's not only about the environment, it's about our health and our well-being. So how the design of a building impacts our work day. You know, if it's dark and it's grungy, you know, and there's not much place to engage with colleagues, then you'll find people are maybe not collaborating, working together. So there's roles in construction whereby people can help design spaces that can get the best out of individuals. So it's a vast amount of roles, and as you can see here, I showed you on the other slide, from cradle to grave within construction, there's a role for you. And taking it just down a level, whether that's trade or an architect or management, there are roles there which you can develop and grow into. And, you know, if you don't achieve what you want to achieve, it's not all lost. I met a lady recently who became a surveyor, and she's 35 years old. She failed all her GCSEs, but she stuck at it, worked hard, put herself through university, and is now involved in Wales in the Transport Bridge, which is an iconic historical building. And so there's such opportunity available to you. Obviously, you know, your GCSEs and securing those maths and English will help you immensely. But once you've achieved those, and you can then go into different roles and develop your career through lots of pathways. Where my colleague Anna-Lee will talk about apprenticeships, there's also degree apprenticeships, you know, learning while you work. There's an opportunity for everyone.
Sure. Pauline, thank you. That's an incredibly insightful, holistic view there of the industry and why it's so important. So look, the key messages there are, if you are, well, I say if you're a young person, if you're a student, but from what you've just said there, Pauline, you know, this is the same. This could be your parents, could even be your grandparents. There is so much demand then for these roles and this sort of work in Hertfordshire, and so literally everything that you can think of, whether it's the bricklayers and those specific trades, to whether it's people involved in the planning process, is those roles like architecture, which maybe we'll talk about later. We've got someone in the call on the call at the moment who I know is interested in environmental law as well. So you've got those legal aspects of the industry as well that will need to be adhered to. And so fascinating. You said 180 brand new job titles alone have been created. So look, if you're watching this one, the sustainable construction industry in Hertfordshire is crying out for you. So make sure this is the first step of hopefully a very, very many of coming in and supporting.
And
this.
Also, can I just say, you don't necessarily have to have a role within a construction company. You might have seen signs like Kier, Wilmot Dixon, Mace. You could also get a role with an organisation such as TK Maxx. They have a huge estate of retail outlets, and those buildings need to be sustainable and energy efficient. So again, when you think about sustainable construction, you don't always naturally think, oh yes, that's construction industry and that's those type of organization. There's you know, opportunity. I know, for example, today Barclays have been running an event in London with regards to the cost of sustainability in construction. And you know, the long-term savings are really significant and to be enjoyed for the future and for the future's future.
Absolutely. Okay. Anna-Lee, let me bring you in at this point. So you explained at the start that you you work for the CITB, so it's the trade body for construction. How much is sustainable construction, I guess, really taking over? I mean, is there going to be a point in the future where just everyone involved in the construction industry, all their practices will have to be sustainable, or is that the case already?
So sustainability is something which is growing in construction. More and more buildings in construction industry are looking for what Pauline said about retrofit and making the buildings and the construction sustainable. We have to look at the future, and as the government have said, we want net zero. We want to get to the stage where we are working on a sustainable construction base. Then that is the future. Now, to be able to do this, people that are coming into the industry needs to have a qualification. You can't go directly into, let's say, being a retrofit assessor. You have to have some kind of base, a qualification, and then you have to go further through that. So if you would go and do, as I was saying about the apprenticeship, you would, for example, become a project manager, but then you're interested in the environmental route, and then you build on that qualification. Obviously, it starts from the basis. So you start from level 2 and you work yourself up, as Pauline said, you can to the degree level, which is level 7. So yeah, I think it's really important to think about what you're interested in and how you see your future and what you want to do with your life as a career. I think a lot of people are thinking that construction, there's a myth that certain trades or careers are more lucrative than others. And the only way someone is going to be successful if they are working hard, they're doing their behavior, they're showing keenness, and they really show that they want to be in the industry. That's the only way. But yes,
Okay.
to answer your question, sustainability is not going anywhere. It's just going to grow and grow and grow.
Sure. And then, I mean, you've just touched on it there, but we probably have this perception of what somebody who works in the construction industry perhaps looks like and their background. And, you know, very stereotypically, we're probably thinking it's a male dominated one. Interesting that both my panelists today are female. But because of what we're talking about here around sustainability within construction, is this now starting to draw in people with completely different backgrounds and interests? So, I mean, how importantly, Pauline, do you think it is that someone has a really invested interest in environment and sustainability, for instance?
Yes, what we're seeing is a lot of female leaders in the field of sustainable construction, because they have a good understanding of the key principles and how to make an impact. They're absolutely paramount that diversity is threaded through the industry. And we're seeing more and more of, you know, a diverse, from construction site to the boardroom, the whole building life cycle, we're seeing diversity, and that's needed. And I continue to champion that, because everyone comes with different ideas, different solutions, and buildings, if you think about it, they're different. It's architecture in so many different ways. And so we need that talent brought in. And what is interesting with what's happening with sustainability being a buzzword across many industries, that people are going across sectors and there's practices to learn. For example, automotive industry and how they manage waste. The construction industry's been mirroring some of those practices and vice versa, and digitization solutions as well. When we talk about sustainable construction, we're also talking about processes. So project management, as Annalie mentioned, there's a number of tools and qualifications such as Lean, Six Sigma that help the sustainability programs on construction projects work. And those again come from other sectors. So disciplines, you know, can cross over, absolutely. But we are seeing, and we need a lot of diversity in the industry. And picking up on the environmental law inquiry, we have the most legislation in our sector than any other. Health and safety is paramount because we're on sites, it's dangerous, but also, as I said, about diversity and biodiversity, and also because of government and council taglets, there's legislation to follow through there in terms of not just waste and biodiversity, but practices. And so that for not just new buildings, but for existing buildings, we're seeing a huge increase in legislation for environmental, because as I said, existing buildings are emitting the most carbon emissions. So that is why. A little task for you to ask your parents or your teacher tonight is, do you know what the energy performance is of our home? So some of you might have looked at your fridge, freezer, or your boiler and saw a coloured bar chart that's horizontal. and it'll be graded like the GCSEs, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it's similar grading to the GCSEs, and that A is a star rating and G not so good. Majority of buildings in Hertfordshire are between a D and a C, so our buildings aren't very efficient, and so we have to implement new energy efficiency into our homes. So interesting times at the moment. Again, we've got this government target that we have to be net zero by 2050. So and the cost of fuel bills is soaring. So we are sort of looking at that. But a good starting point is to think, what's the energy performance of our building? I know my home's a D. It's 1930s, it's solid wall cavity, freezing in the winter. So it costs a lot to fuel. So even down to you going home, sitting at home now, sustainable construction is involved and part of all of our lives.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. I mean, look, one of the questions I was going to ask here, we'll come on to Annalise. You can talk about some of the apprenticeship pathways there. But that bottom question that we always ask is, what experiences could I gain if you can't actually get formal work experience? I think what you've just described there, Pauline, is that interest in energy efficiency, in your own home, in your school. Certainly every appliance that you buy now will come with an energy efficiency rating. And I guess the sort of people that this industry are looking for are going to be naturally curious, aren't they, about things like that. Just conscious of what, just to remind you, if you have any questions that you want to ask us, please do. So there's the questions tab on your dashboard. This is for those of you watching live at the moment. Open the question tab out and then put your question in there. I'd be interested if any of you that are watching this moment have got any particular job roles in mind that you're interested in, and perhaps we can therefore go and explore and talk a little bit about what that person may do as part of their role. The one that I'm really interested in, so I'm throwing you on the spot here, Pauline, a little bit, is a heat pump engineer. Can you explain a little bit about what they are, and like what will they actually do?
So gas boilers that we have in our homes, government have said they have to be phased out by 2035. So we won't be allowed to have any gas boilers in our homes. And so we have to find other ways to heat our home. Heat pumps are, best describe it, have you seen an air conditioning unit, a white box with a fan on it at the outside of a building, or when you're on holiday, these white boxes? So heat pumps look similar to that. And so you have ground source heat pumps, various different types. And so heat pump engineers, the most transferable skills to be able to install those are gas engineers. So there's a number of incentives at the moment encouraging those to look at year 2035 and look at what technologies, renewable technologies, will be placed in the home, whether that's solar panels or heat pumps, or even as far out as rainwater harvesting. We're getting drought now and capturing rainwater to flush the toilet, for example. They're actually doing it in a lot of schools because they identified that some research that a lot of bullying happens in toilets. And so they're looking actually installing toilets in classrooms. I'm not sure any of us want to go to the loo in a classroom. And they were actually trialing this at BRE, the Building Research Establishment. But rainwater harvesting is another way to bring water into your home. Heat pumps has been said they can be quite costly, but because we have to look at alternative technologies to heat our home, those costs are coming down significantly. As I say, and they come in different forms, and they are one of many technologies that are seen as the solution to alternatively heat our homes. I want to just pick up on that question. What experiences can I gain while still at school? It's really hard. Years ago, people could, you know, go and out to a construction site. We've got a lot of red tape nowadays. It's really hard. Best thing you can do is get out to some of these events that are running. So last week in London, there was the Future Build event, which showcased these new technologies, and new digitized systems to help, you know, with improving the sustainability of new construction. There's other events happening in June, just at Olympia, which is one train stop away from Watford Junction. You know, try and get to events, try and get out to talk to people and meet people. That's where you will learn a lot. And I know it's hard while you're at school, but try and get out to the events, to industry events, and meet people, and that will help.
Sure,
If
okay.
I just gonna add to that, there's actually a retrofit event that's coming up for one of the colleges that might be of interest if they would like to go along and have a look. It might be that we can send the link to.
We have one next Wednesday at Oaklands College.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the
in
one.
the morning. It's 8:30 start till 10. Maybe you could.
If you're interested. Yeah. It might be something that the teachers can take them along to.
Sure.
That's
okay. It would be remiss of me as well not to mention as well, on Wednesday the 27th of March, we have an event called Generation Three Rivers. So for those of you in the Three Rivers, Watford or Dacorum area, from 3:15 until 5 o'clock, there's an event where you can go and meet up to about 25 different employers who are all within that environmental sustainability, which construction will definitely be a big part of that one. So that's at the Watersmeet Theatre in Rickmansworth. So if that is your side of the county, then do try and get along to that as well. I think that'll be a really, really good event. So yeah, do have a look at that one. Just then coming on to qualifications, I mean, with there being so many different jobs, it's difficult to say what the one subject choice is that you need for all of them. But Annalie, I know you were quite keen to talk about some of the apprenticeship routes that are available. And I think you're just going to use the opportunity to talk a little bit generally about apprenticeships, because we know not enough people perhaps know enough about them or understand the true value of them. So if I give you the floor, Annalie, you can talk through some apprenticeship routes.
So there's different routes into construction, and one of the routes is apprenticeships. Some students have asked me what is an apprenticeship, so I thought that this would be a good opportunity. So basically an apprenticeship is you're employed with a company, but you also go to college. So this could be 1 day a week, or it could be what we call block release, where you go for 1 week, 2 weeks in college, and at the same time, then you go to site and you spend 3 to 4 weeks in site and then back again. So the beauty of apprenticeship is that you are employed, you earn money, and you get a qualification at the same time. Now, some students have also said to me, well, I don't have English and maths, or my degree, my GCSEs are not good enough. And what the colleges do these days is that you can do your English and maths, so what we call functional skills, and you can get that grade that you need to do the courses. So you do this English and maths while you're at college studying. So the different levels, when we say level 2, is usually trades. And what do we mean by trades? It could be, for example, the normal traditional ones like carpentry, plumbing, electrical, etc., painting, the list goes on. Also specialist ones. I don't think it's mentioned enough that there's the specialist roofing, scaffolding, all of these trades. And although it doesn't sound like it's environmentally significant, but they are, because all of these are working on the building site and around construction, and they have to be aware of the green skills as well, as much as a project manager. So all of these different trades are connected in some way or another, because you can't build a building without one or the other. You can't, if you don't have a bricklayer, or if you don't have a carpenter, you can't continue the work. So they are all connected. So the advanced level 3, that is basically your quantity surveyors, your civil engineers, and it's a myth that they're more based on site because, I mean, in the office, because they do go out on site as well. They do a little bit of everything, but it's not the muddy boots, as I call it, the ones that go out to do the actual trade, the brickwork and the carpentry. So it's all about your interest and what you like to do. Do you like to be on site and work practically, or do you like to be in the office and do more the project work and see how you can work with the design, etc.? So the higher level 4, 5, 6, and 7 and the degree levels are more equivalent to bachelor and master degree. That could be if you want to go from when you've done level 2, level 3, you can go up a level 6 and 7, etc., and be that project manager. The level 3 is usually supervisor level. So my question for you, or my advice for you, is to think about what you are interested in. Because if you start a course and you actually are not interested in that, but you think, well, that would be a good job to have, then you're not going to finish that course. And that sounds a little bit negative, but it's realistic. So just think about what you like. Look on the websites. I'm sure that we're going to send some links to different websites like GoConstruct, and that will show you the different kinds of roles out there. So apprenticeship is really for someone who wants to work and study at the same time. Now, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about the green skills, and everything that Pauline has talked about is related to the apprenticeship because it gives you the base. It gives you that qualification in a trade or in one of the higher technical apprenticeship, as I call it, which are the quantity surveying and civil engineering. And when you have that base and you're interested in the net zero environmentally green skills, you can do those on top of that. So unfortunately, I don't think there is at the moment an apprenticeship in just environmental green skills. I'm sure they're going to be, but at the moment there isn't. So what I suggest, if you're interested in the environment and you want to work within construction in that green skill environment base, then get yourself a base of qualification and then build on that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. No, that's good advice. But Pauline, it's a question that's just come in. I want to ask. So, question is: I want to become an architect and have been accepted by all my uni choices. So, well done for that. What aspects of sustainable construction apply to architecture, e.g., such as using local material, etc.?
Wow. Well, wherever you are building, whether which county, you'll have the UK regulations for building, so the building regulations, and then you'll have local requirements, and then you'll also, so there's lots of different aspects you'll need to look at. So as I said, UK government's basically plans, the local plans, the company that you're working for, what their aims in terms of they look to achieve with their design. As I say, you'll have to look at biodiversity, you'll have to look at the infrastructure, in terms of how people will get to the building. It's no longer, satisfactory to assume that people will drive. Looking at trams, looking at electric bikes, for example, charging units. So if you're looking at designing a building for a workplace building, electric car charging, you have to think about those things where a couple of years ago, no one was ever considering that. So my advice would be to you that within your studies, you stay at the forefront of what is happening in the industry and ensure that you're you know, at the cutting edge of developments with sustainability and technology, because that will set you apart from everyone else. As I say, because of these targets, there's new initiatives, new technologies coming in, and as an architect, ensuring that you are designing and including the right technology is really important. So stay at the forefront of what's happening. Look at RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects. They are a good source of, they have a student membership as well. I think it's free, that you could then join up as a member, and then you'll get newsletters of what's happening. There you go, RIBA. And in terms of others for sustainable construction, the UK Green Building Council are very much at the forefront of all the disciplines on sustainability for construction. So they're a good source as well.
Sure, good. Okay, thanks.
GoConstruct was for the apprenticeship. If you want to know more about the different roles, then please go on to the GoConstruct.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'll keep those QR codes up there for a while. I mean, it was an interesting question, Pauline, someone asking about university there. We've spoken about apprenticeships, and we know that the construction industry really wants to invest in apprentices and bring apprentices through. But of course, there will be others who want to go to university and they want to go into sustainable construction at a later point. Are there any good, I mean, so the person who asked the question specifically has gone through an architecture route, but are there any sort of general courses perhaps that you would recommend people look at if they want to go and study at university?
There are some short courses on UKGBC. There are some courses online that they can access. And so, you know, getting your own knowledge up there in terms of what's happening, what the requirements are, what technologies are coming out. You know, you Google, there's a number of providers, UKGBC, BRE, the Retrofit Academy. But I will say one thing is, for architects in particular, I know there's a lot of apprenticeships being offered for surveyors, and that's very much about client engagement and managed confrontation. It's very much about estimating and commercial. Architecture, you know, there's a whole support structure around you for that discipline. Just ensure that you stay at the forefront of what's happening in the industry with regards to the design regulations. That would be my advice.
For sure. Okay, thanks. Well, look, I'll put those QR codes up again in a moment if you want to have another look at them. But since we've spoken about the demand for people within this industry, within Hertfordshire specifically, but I'm sure this would be mirrored by all our neighbouring counties. So, for example, if you relocate to another part of the country, I'm sure those jobs are going to be equally in demand. But Pauline, I know you've also got some sort of really mind-blowing numbers and statistics in terms of why there's such demand in Hertfordshire for this industry. So do you want to share a couple of those with us?
Okay, so as I said earlier, there's some 520,000 homes here in Hertfordshire. Okay, 500,000 of those, so all but 20,000, have to have energy efficiency measures installed. Okay, in Hertfordshire, we've got just over 57,000 people work in construction. That's not to say they work in Hertfordshire, but they have that construction job title, and that could be architect, it could be construction site manager. There are just over 7,000 construction businesses in the county, okay? There are only 1,616 qualified electricians in Hertfordshire, okay? We've got 500,000 homes, just over. How are we going to install energy efficiency measures like heat pumps, solar panels, when we've only got 1,600 qualified electricians. Huge opportunity, not for you, for maybe some of your friends. Huge growth area. We need something in the region of, well, it's around 1,200 people involved in retrofitting every year to 2030. 1,200 people involved in retrofitting, improving energy efficient in Hertfordshire every year to 2050. So in terms of construction being a career of choice, when I say that, I mean it, because there's so much opportunity and we just don't have the numbers coming through. And because of that, the salaries are going to start increasing because they're going to be sought after roles. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any additional questions or want to ask about these events or anything, do reach out to Gareth on the chat, because there's lots happening in Hertfordshire alone. There's lots of opportunity, and really it's over to you to use and take advantage of all of that and set yourselves up for your future.
Absolutely, thank you. Annalie, do you just want to explain again what GoConstruct website is and why people might want to use that?
Yeah, so GoConstruct is, let's say, a career website where you can go for free, look for any job roles within construction. It has personality quizzes on there as well, so you can see, put your interest through, and you can see what it comes out with what kind of role they suggest that you should go into. But what I think it's a very good website to just look and familiarize yourself with the different job roles, and you can read details about them, and it also actually has links to how to get into the different job roles. So it does take you to the apprenticeships websites as well, and the different colleges, I think, as well, and to HOP. I think it's on to HOP website. So it's just a very good starting point for you.
For sure. Okay, thank you. So look, thank you so much for joining this webinar this afternoon. We really hope you found it useful. Thank you for your contributions and your questions as well. They've really helped us move the conversation on as well. But most particularly, thank you to my panelists, so to Pauline and to Annalie, for giving up your time, not just for this afternoon, but in preparation for this webinar as well, and sharing some of your experiences and knowledge with us. I think you've really set the scene for us very nicely here, that this is a fantastic industry to go into within Hertfordshire. And as you alluded to there, Pauline, when demand for jobs becomes so high and supply is low, it often means that salaries and wages will reflect that as well. So you're probably going into a lucrative industry as well, whether you think you're going to go in as a traditional trade, or whether you're going as an architect, or anywhere in between here. This very much is an industry that needs you. So just in closing, just remind you, do have a look at our HOP website and our social media channels. We've got, this is episode 90 that we've recorded of these webinars. So we cover a different topic every week. So just about everything that you can imagine has been covered. So if there's not something that you find on there, there'll be something that your friends will find interesting in the similar sort of format. Next week, we're doing a career as a pilot. I've got a British Airways pilot joining us to talk about routes into that. After Easter, we're going to be talking about air traffic control. It's not just aviation careers, though. We've got one about accountancy and social work coming up as well this academic year. So do have a look through those. Hope you find something on there that is of interest to you. Wish you all a very, very pleasant evening. And particular thanks to Annalie and Pauline. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.